I'm so glad we got this in because I wouldn't have wanted to leave you without it. I must tell you, and I'm a Cold War guy, I admit. If we had been as indifferent to the fact that we have, at the senior-most levels of the United States government today, people who are playing for the other side, back in the Cold War, we wouldn't have won. Period. Now, there was a time, as you recall, before Joe McCarthy did his thing, when we were doing pretty much the same thing. But just to give you some examples, and I mentioned this course, MuslimBrotherhoodAmerica.com, it has, in section 8, profiles of 6, and this is just a small subset, 6 people who are either on the U.S. government payroll, or are serving in senior advisory capacities, or are designated liaisons, like Abdurrahman al-Amoudi was, to the Muslim American community, who are tied, in many cases, 6 ways from Sunday to the Muslim Brotherhood. Just one example being Homa Abedin. She is not the only example. She just happens to be a particularly extraordinary example. Who is Homa Abedin? Well, you may know her as Mrs. Anthony Weiner, right? A sympathetic figure because of her husband's misbehavior. Homa Abedin, however, is from Saudi Arabia. Originally, her parents were from Pakistan, but she grew up in Saudi Arabia. She went to work for Hillary Clinton when Hillary Clinton was First Lady of the United States as an intern in the White House. She went on to work with her as a campaign aide when she ran for your United States Senator. When she got elected, she went on to work for her in the United States Senate. When she left there to run for the president, she worked for her there on the campaign as her traveling chief of staff. When she got into the State Department rather than the White House, she worked for her in her present capacity as the deputy chief of staff to the Secretary of State. Who is Homa Abedin? In addition to being Mrs. Weiner, Homa Abedin is a member of a family who was basically put into the Islamist dawah business, dawah being proselytization, by one of the top Muslim brothers in the world, and, by the way, an al-Qaeda financier. A fellow by the name of, I think I've got this right, Abdul Omar Nassif. He created for them, with funding from a Muslim, or I should say a Saudi organization known as the Muslim World League, a family business. Back when Homa's father first migrated, after studying here in the United States with his wife, getting a PhD here, migrated to Saudi Arabia to establish something called the Institute of Muslim Minority Affairs. What was the purpose of an Institute of Muslim Minority Affairs? It was to promote in Muslim minority populations in the Dar al-Harb, as they call it, the House of War, the non-Muslim world, enclaves, mosques, organizations that will do what? That will wage civilization jihad. She was associated expressly with the one product of this operation called the Journal of Muslim Minority Affairs, on whose masthead she was listed as an associate editor for 12 years, during which time she worked for Mrs. Clinton, up until the point where she went into the State Department.
That's no regular family member.
On the masthead for 7 of those 12 years was, again, I think I have this right, Abdul Omar Nassif, juxtaposed, a top al-Qaeda financier. Now, we had a conversation about this with Andy McCarthy, former federal prosecutor, a man deeply knowledgeable about the law, deeply knowledgeable about this issue. In fact, I think one of the best in the country, over lunch today. And Andy makes the point that guilt by association can be abused. But it also is absolutely central to the practice of ensuring that people who are dangerous are not given things like security clearances because they have associations with people who seek our destruction. And ladies and gentlemen, again, I wanted to leave you with one thought, which is what? Shariah is about power, not faith. Way ahead. The other thought is this. At a moment when we are witnessing the complete and abject failure of the Obama administration's policy of engaging and embracing and enriching and arming and otherwise empowering Islamists, the question has to be asked. What role are people like Huma Abedin, with her ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, playing in shaping such policy disasters? Clearly in the interest of the Muslim Brotherhood, and I would argue just as clearly antithetical to our interests. And that question, like some of these other issues, the bomber that we don't hear about in Arizona, the Ground Zero Mosque that nobody says is clearly a triumphalist institution to advance the idea of our submission, and so on. No one is asking this question. I hope you will. And I hope you will support the Center for Immigration Studies. Thank you.